What's up, guys? The Strong Boys 19 here. Welcome back to the discography of one of my favourite bands of all time, Korn. I know it has been 3 months, exactly 3 months, since I have last done an album review on any album, but I wanted to come back to Korn's discography because today I'm going to be reviewing the next album after my review of their 2003 album that was Take a Look in the Mirror. This is going to be my album review on the follow-up album entitled See You on the Other Side. See You on the Other Side came out on the 6th of December in the year of 2005, which is actually, at the time when it came out, my 11th birthday. Now, this is the first Korn album for the first time across the whole career, a very different sounding album. It's so noticeable instantly from the look of the album cover art to the moment you put on this album. Of course, we have heard the continuing growth of the band as musicians, and with some more increasing moments of the melodies to the clean vocals, as well as for Korn as a band to grow more of the artistic expressions through later albums like with Issues and Untouchables. With See You on the Other Side, this is the first Korn album to have been released and created in general with a lot of involvement in different ways. This is the first Korn album not to feature Brian Head Welch on rhythm guitar along with Monkey, because Head left the band after the era of Take a Look in the Mirror due to his addictions to drugs and alcohol. He went into sobriety as well as for himself to improve his mental health. This is the first Korn album to be released through a different record label as they've completed their record deal contract with Sony. This album was released both on Virgin and EMI. This is the first Korn album with the involvement of not only Jonathan Davis as a continuing producer, but with the involvement of Atticus Ross from Nine Inch Nails, and also the Matrix production team got involved as well. It is the final album in Korn's discography to have David Silveria on drums, who was the band's drummer since the very beginning. He was ejected from the band a year later in 2006 after the album's era. See You on the Other Side, for many years, when I was getting into the band, was not one of my favourites. But obviously, as time went by, through my journeys of discovering different genres to artists, styles of production, and the experiences of wanting to know this or that kind of music, See You on the Other Side has been a very big surprise when I revisited the album. I have still kept the original CD pressing, and I have bought the 2 CD Deluxe Limited Edition, and its packaging is absolutely awesome. I love this album's packaging. And the album will be released on double vinyl to celebrate its upcoming 20th anniversary in a few weeks' time. So I will be getting that for my Korn collection. See You on the Other Side is a really ambitious album for Jonathan and company. Also, I would have said this earlier, it's the first Korn album to be made for the band as a 4-piece, with Jonathan, Monkey, David, and Fieldy being involved. This album, artistically and instrumentally, is very much inspired through the different styles of music. It is so noticeable to think about the album as not your usual typical Korn signature sounding album like the earlier stuff and the later stuff. Of course, I am still a big fan of the early stuff. I love the debut to Life is Peachy, to a lot of Follow the Leader, and I love Issues, etc, etc, etc. But with See You on the Other Side, this is a transitional sounding one. Jonathan and company were inspired heavily by listening and loving around different styles of music, of industrialism to new wave and some of the electronic pieces. So a lot of the material on this album for 61 minutes is a variety sounding one. This is an album that took me not a very long amount of time for me to digest it. I will have to say that this is one of the most underrated albums across the band's discography. The first song and single of the album is Twisted Transistor. It is an instant change of pace and sound to what we would usually hear as a Korn opening song. Studio effects, faint looping voices, guitars that are howling away before the song starts. The guitar, as soon as it began, is engaging on its simple, loud riff, and the drums give you that smack immediately. Jonathan's vocals follow the hook with his rhythmic performance. It's not one of those explosive songs, but it was intentional for Korn to build it in a simplistic way. I always loved this song a lot, especially looking back with my memories of seeing the dumb but I would still say cringy parody type of music video. It's a commercial sounding opener and single, even though it was one of those later songs that got pretty divided for many fans. The lyrics are about the transistor radio, and anyone would be carrying it wherever they go just to listen to the music from the transistor radio at any time. The low end means the lower frequency radio waves. If the volume is turned up, you'll feel the drums and bass vibrating, hence the lyric of hold it between your legs, turn it up. It's a really interesting take on this. The user of the transistor radio would be obsessed and in love with it. In the pre-chorus, she would be alone a lot of the time if it wasn't for the transistor radio, because the connection grew stronger. When she listens to the music obviously is there for her, and no one understands that. The music is like her comfort method. The chorus continues the experience. The scream could mean her loneliness and with negative emotions, but they've been reduced to a whisper. Hang on you means to rely on the transistor radio as a friend. In the second verse, it's about knowing the fact that being nice with other people does not mean that everyone would accept her in the same ways, to show any of the positivity or the same connection with no care and respect to her, which I find pretty relevant today because it still does not show a big change in the way we see the world either. Even when she was doing her best, other people would just bring her down. She would be breaking down in tears, but as she's crying, the music will always be there. Obviously, the world can be toxic and progressive in negativity. There are good things to overcome for her to grow. So Twisted Transistor is, in my opinion, a really interesting opening song, especially for the inspiration of lyrics, of what Jonathan decided to have in mind. The next song, Politics. I do like this one a lot as well. It opens in some kind of like a strange trip-hop beat for a few seconds, and then the raging tones and drums go right into it. The instrumentation sounds heavy and instant from the rise of the volumes along with the sound of Jonathan's vocal harmonies. David's drumming was excellent in this song, as he's still grabbing your attention with his hooks. Monkey's guitar distortion had been changing in multiple ways during the song's progression, from the screaming wah-wah, layered notes, and delivered chords. What I have to say is, as much as that I really enjoy this one so much, the compression and the way it was mixed is so high, so it can be quite distracting, as the rawness is simply not there. Obviously a modern take on the production, especially with the involvement of The Matrix and Atticus Ross for different songs, but the compression is sometimes a bit too much. The lyrics are simply a negative expression on views and controlling manipulation from other people in this whole politics side of opinions. You're being forced to cope with the differences, which unfortunately increases some of the tension some other times between one and other people's expressions and actions. We know that they have their own differences, and we think that they don't share any of the respect of the well-being. Continuing to criticize and to know that it's not only on the political differences in governments, but in anything else entirely, like with religion and sex. So it's just basic, simple lyric writing, but straight to the point from Jonathan's point of view. Hypocrites. It starts with deep, clean notes, with voices in an industrial setting from the choice of production, glitchy delays, and Korn jump right into the playful rhythmic styles. Jonathan goes into his usual separate vocal changes and ranges, which I have always enjoyed a lot. His performance on this song was melodic and still intriguing. Musically, the song didn't go into many pieces of heaviness, but it's focused on a decent amount of the chemistry from what the song sounded like, so it does have a lot of the bounce as well. I think this is another really great song. The lyrics go into the act of another critical direction of expression. This time, Hypocrites is on organized religion. The people who go to church will be told to pay the money, which makes the leaders of the church richer. Also about blind faith, believing in something without a reason or evidence, which I find still pretty fascinating to look into lyrics like these. Other artists would be writing lyrics about this same way, but I was quite surprised myself when I was looking into Jonathan's lyrics through different ways. So I really appreciate his own attempts to be showing a lot of the variety. Souvenir. Now this is one of my other really intrigued, fascinating moments of the album, because it's changed into not only a returned signature Korn style with these wailing guitars, but it's a swap in tone for the drums. Expressive vocals were all featured in this song because John's performance was really great in this one. The instrumentation goes along in its almost mid-tempo duration. The bass from Fieldy is bigger, especially with the few guitar notes as they connect together throughout the moodier sounding written music. The only negative about this one, I say, was the weaker mixing in the bridge section. It just wasn't as good. It felt flat for me from what I liked so much in this song. I get the experimental idea and its overall execution from its attempts, but its texture wasn't as neatly executed. The song is a reflection from Jonathan's past when he was tormented and attacked by other people during his school years. The difficulty of self-acceptance and the normality of people who'd expect others to adapt. He questions why would everybody fit in to be around with other normal people, also thinks differently, and he doesn't compare himself to them from his appearance, and he'll be thinking about it so much so that he'll be going mad. It shows the growing feeling of anxiety. As addressed in the chorus, he does have an anxiety disorder. He's always finding things difficult to help himself while his mind is acting up. So it's like a constant battle. It was a moment in his past that no one understood why he was acting in these ways, and we didn't know about mental health conditions for ages until we obviously would discover them. Jonathan has been trying to stand up and he wants to grow a lot of the strength. The second verse is the pointing the finger at to these people from the abuse and violence Jonathan suffered. Despite what happened at the time, he's still here being in the present without having to think about these kinds of people anymore. While he moved forward, he became a famous vocalist and a growing person. But there were times when he'll be thinking about the same people who gave him the negative views of him. As he thought of that, the anxiety will be coming back. 10 or a 2 way. David's drumming stands out in this song because he delivers so perfectly through his unique creative beats. As the loudness arrives, he really adds his anger behind the kit. In my opinion, 10 or a 2 way is a much better song in terms of creativity, from the samples, feel these brilliant bass lines and the whole atmosphere surrounding these verse sections. It's one of my favorites on the album in terms of the better dynamic and striking energy. After the main song, we hear, for me, the first interlude, as we will hear later ones throughout the album. I would like to call these interludes, but I would like to see them as like the brief sections to connect the behaviors of what the songs sounded like. In this one, we hear the looping breathing sounds to eerie keyboards, heartbeats, and noisy bagpipes. Lyrical speaking, the song is very much like a similar way of lyrical content in sexual activity and the whole nature of a relationship with a woman. The woman decides to use a person and go into infidelity for the sake of it. The person had a lack of connectivity and decided to make the choice of pursuing a sexual desire. The entire set of lyrics basically describe the provocative experience with its suggestions. However, the complexity is there about how a modern relationship can go into something like this while being in a committed relationship. The phrase of the song's title, 10 or a 2 away, suggested the continuation of these sexual encounters and pointing out it's not relying on another person. The later verses mean that the woman isn't finding a connected relationship to last at all. It's only a short amount of time until it stops when the sexual desire goes away. Throw Me Away. Now this is another strong favourite for me. A robotic synthesizer type of sound. I guess a gated percussive set of noises. The melody comes back in while Jonathan shines in this song. His vocals were phenomenal. The whole song makes itself so deep and unsettling because of the multi-tracked ranged vocals from Jonathan's pitches. The ambience is massive, raw and yet isolating. The lyrics go into the feeling of being desperate for acceptance and the seeking of validation, as Jonathan's been going through so many of these difficult emotions of being used, misunderstood and abused. Having the sense of pain and the need for support needs to be there, as well as the connection from anyone around him. The medication he has been taking has been the healing for his struggles, but the hard part is if anyone would understand him, if his prayers could be heard. There's the issue of love that's been inconsistent that could lead into self-destruction, pleading for a person to not reject him, as his grown fear is there for being thrown away and his mental health goes into a worsening state. He's been doing his best to be a good, well-being person, but the struggles continue. He expresses himself as feeling weak and it shows the sign of his emptiness. He's still trying to seek the importance for him to be valued. He wants us to think if he could make it to have these signs of improvement, of growth and transformation. Throw Me Away is a really, really great song. Definitely one of those that deserves a lot of the admiration. Love Song. This is one of the mournful and creepiest pieces of music on the whole album. Slower tempo and spooky surroundings. Love Song is one of Korn's most dense and bleakest ones yet. It does have its gothic feel to it. Jonathan's voice, from hitting these highs and lows, have a weary tone. The guitars and bass both growl together from their descending chords. One of those uncompromising, descriptively tense type of songs. Like a lot of these other emotional, despairing themes of lyrics, this one moves into Jonathan's turmoil. The verses express his lowest mood, feeling the loss of losing someone he loved. He mentioned his mother after his father left him, and the rest of the song transitions into John's thoughts of being suicidal, and he is heavily contemplating it. The chorus dedicates to the ones who are departed, and he wants to be one of them. The later lyrics predict his continuing thoughts of taking his own life to end his suffering. The last verse was written about his mind at the time, and that he was going through his hard drug addictions, still repeating the same issues, as well as to find his purpose, as it was repeatedly shared previously on some of the other songs on the earlier Korn albums. We go into Open Up, which I absolutely adore. It's one of my top 3 most favourite songs on the album. We pick ourselves up with a bit of an upbeat speed. Fieldy makes his appearance from his slapping bass techniques. Musically, it confidently moves into a focused, addictive, groovy type of sing-along approachment of music, especially with the chorus, because it is so catchy. It does go into like a rock genre instead of making it harder hitting and violent, like with what most of the album does. It's one song that did grow on me when I was listening to it on repeat over and over again. Non-heavy moments on the album, but I love this song. After the whole song ends, we go into another interlude that makes me think of For You from Issues, but with the involved sounds of highly crazy edited vocal speeds, more bagpipes, and a funk-style beat. The opening verses explore how the drugs affect your eyes and they'll enlarge your pupils. You'll begin to question why you'll take them and to not understand how damaging they are, and it will eventually ruin your life. The pulling you in and making your mind up lyrics are both based on how you'll be addicted to them and how you'll feel while you're taking them. The chorus could refer to a person being completely out of it, being so high, and how much the drugs will be taking the overall effect. Drug addicts will continue to tell lies to anyone around them in order to protect themselves and to get more of the drugs, or they will decide to escape their addictions. But if they go into more of the drug taking, it will lead into fatal overdosing. The first 2 lines in the second verse maybe refers to Xanax, hence the person talking slow after taking it. The taker isn't aware of its side effects, and yet the psychiatrist instructed him or her to take it. Xanax will cause a problem of breathing, and it would also increase the risk of suicidality and the addiction of the drug, or the anxiety will not recover. The next song and single of the album, Coming Undone. The extremely basic opening riff starts in quite an unusual way, and it works when the drums arrive. It's like the rhythm of the guitar has its own tempo, and the drums are so beginnerish. The snare drum does sound like another big smack. It's like an audio processing technique of just gating the sound of the snare without hearing the whole tone. The music is one of Korn's most catchiest and accessible songs. Jonathan's melody is perfection. It's a memorable style, and the whole song is still one of my favorites. The lyrics show Jonathan's mental health breaking point, and he's thinking about taking his own life. So it's kind of similar in Love Song, but this one, it really gets heavier. The ticking like a bomb lyric from the opening lyrics goes into the act of self-destruction, and it shows what the rest of the song's lyrics are going to go into. The descriptions from his thoughts have been so intense, and the refrains before the chorus does make him feel like committing suicide to not cope with the constant ways of his struggles, so it's just an instant, forceful way of escapism. The chorus addresses he'll be doing it, but the time was never there. The last line before the repeating lines could refer to other people who may not be suffering with depression, but they're still fragile and they still need help. It obviously depends on the state of anyone's depression, whether it's mild or so severe. So I really like the way Jonathan wrote these lyrics in the chorus. The choking was another attempt, and the demons were describing his friends. Friends Jonathan thought they were there by his side, and his anxiety continued to grow. He's used to feeling sad due to his troubled past, and there are others who would try to help him out, but their advice would never change his mind. They've never been helpful. The bridge section shows his collapsing into his breaking point. He's been trying so hard to take himself out, but he's trying to keep himself under control. The depression has been pushing him down with the weight of the world on his shoulders. Coming Undone is pretty much still a classic Korn song. Getting Off. We switch back to the signature style of writing, Monkey's adrenaline of riffs and variety from David Silvera's drumming. His fills and variations were brilliant, and his energy is 100%. As much as the musicianship is still impressive, unfortunately, Getting Off is one of my least favourite songs on the album. It has its moments. I was liking some of the pieces of music, like the personality of vocals as well, from the cleans to the growling, but this is one of those songs I could do without. It didn't really go into this complete satisfaction of favoritism. This one, like with Beat It Up Right from Untouchables, it's a similar inspiration with sexual activities and fetishism. Jonathan's wordplay and ways of thinking are obviously explicit, especially in the pre-choruses. The chorus simply shows his act of doing some masturbation and feeling satisfied. In these verse sections, these lyrics describe the different ways of going into the fetish, into some sexual activity, maybe at the same time. Although it was just clear and noticeable to see these lyrics in a repetitive style of writing don't feel like they're one of John's best. It's obvious, but the way it was executed, it didn't feel that original, and it was like one of those songs that had its moments where some pieces were good, but it was not really one of the strongest songs. Liar. This is a song that brings me back. It totally is worth it to listen to this song for the first time in ages, because when I was discovering Korn in the mid-2000s, I was already in love with a lot of the music videos from the previous album eras, like with Life is Peachy to Follow the Leader and Issues. But when I was discovering YouTube and to see the grossly awful and badly dated CGI music video of this song, I fell in love with this song immediately. So I owe this one loads of the treasured memories. The song is like an expected alternative metal type of song. The chugging riff from Monkey still goes hard, as well as with David Silvera's very precise and controlled drumming, one of the most underrated Korn songs ever. Jonathan's performances were excellent and full of personality. He does have the change of voices and he sounds just stellar. The chorus didn't sound as in your face and not aggressive, but the way I listened to Monkey's guitars and bass, The guitar is kind of like a Limp Bizkit, dive bomb, whammy bar type of playing style, although it was not that. It's just Monkey hitting the lower sounding chords from the first few frets on the fretboard. Fieldy's bass is greatly pronounced in the mix. After the final whispers and chords, Liar fades out into the next interlude because we hear the wah-wah gained guitar with its kill switch, few seconds of some type of scratching, and bagpipes once again. Now, if you look at the lyrics, a lot of people will say it is just so bad, weak and generic, but there's a lot of the meaning behind this one. It's basically about the abusive, troubled relationship between Jonathan's half-brother Mark and his other half. The couple split up in 2007. Jonathan opens up to Mark, telling him to, wake up because the relationship's been going on in this disastrous state. The biggest flaw from Mark was that he was so in love with her, and that connection was still strong, and he didn't think about the truth behind the whole thing in the first place. Jonathan pointed out the truth to him, and Mark hasn't been thinking about the state of it, not listening to himself, and not making any other choice to do what's right for him to end the whole relationship. The toxicity got so bad that she was using Mark in such a forceful, manipulative way, just for the center of attention and bad behavior with no care. Jonathan says in the chorus to Mark about having some sense and conviction that what he's doing is in the wrong from what's been said and what's been done. The title of the song, Liar, is the direct word to Mark because he's making a complete liar of himself. The lies have been feeding to him without accepting the truth. The second verse is really about John's motivation to get Mark out of the relationship, as well as to not lose who he truly is and to not lose his feelings. So Liar as a song is still my favourite song on the whole album because of the memories I've shared. For No One, Monkey and Fieldy sound just as good together, and they start the song up in such a big way, as well as with one of the best parts, which was Jonathan's vocals, as he is so engaging, and the drumming from David once again. He is crazily wild. I would say, like with Liar, one of the other underrated songs that gets very little attention. The lyrics detail both the imageries and behaviour of a gang who decides to cause as much trouble to be against anyone and everyone around them, being so rebellious, and they stand in their own ground. They want to do whatever they want to not let anyone stop them in their tracks. Like a fuck you to anyone in society, as well as the other people who are in power, to be totally free from them, to steal a girl from someone else, stealing a car and driving at high speed, breaking into a store and stealing, watching pornography on TV. Their destruction continues by breaking windows with bricks, driving past the church they hated from their past. The last verse suggests that if you make the decisions to do what the others have done, you wouldn't look back and change your mind. The damages have been done and they still want to continue their troublesome ways. The chorus repeats like some kind of a chant of the gang to not be stopped and to ride all night long. As the lyrics are one of those unusual ones in my opinion, I still do like this one a lot because of the sound and delivery overall. Seen It All, out of all of the other songs from earlier to later on See You on the Other Side, this is my very least favourite. The songwriting is decent. It opens in some kind of like a factory background ambience, and it does introduce itself in a promising way to make it as experimental and haunting. It's unsettling and has its freakiness, but I find it highly average. The worst part about the song, it's just forgettable. I never remembered this song just as actively or as positively, which is quite a shame because there's been a lot of joy and intriguing highlights of the album, but seeing it all just didn't really get me satisfied. After the whole song, the final interlude arrives with some more wonderful bagpipes and I think some kind of like a sustained high-pitched siren type noise. The lyrics are telling the different kinds of people who have been seen separately from Jonathan's eyes, both positively and negatively. And the main theme of the song is the whole duality part of it, as well as a reflection about these identities. Many of the lyrics were written as like a kind of a metaphorical way. Jonathan said he has seen it all, and yet he's keeping himself sane throughout the experience. It's an endless time of being around with anybody in front of you or at any side, other kinds of people around you, in a world that's full of conflict, strife, and division. The final song, Tearjerker. This is, without question, the most ambient synthesizer sounding piece. It concludes See You on the Other Side in a calmer and yet still as not a positive way. It's got its own atmospheric presence. The music is beautiful. It's got a lot of these spaces for the chords to come out, and it's got less is more than more is more material. Jonathan's vocals were extremely innocent and desperate. It's like he's at the edge of feeling emotional from the way he sounds in his calm voice. The drums and the rest of the instruments don't kick in until almost the very last part of the song. To conclude the song in kind of like a climactic part, Tearjerker is a brutally underrated song for what it is, and like what I said about Open Up to Liar, it's one of the top most favourite songs. As it's the final song, the lyrics are about his honesty of wishing for someone to love him and something would help him to make his life better and to improve than to keep feeling the same emotions of loneliness at any moment in his time. As he was going through loads of the worst times from his past, he was finding himself in a difficult place, full of self-doubt, because he just wanted any day where he would have the chance to rise above and surpass the negativity as best as he can. Like No One's There from Untouchables, it's a returned theme in complete isolation, and while Jonathan has been feeling lonely, it worsened his mental health. Tearjerker, to me, is one of the underappreciated masterpiece closing songs for any of Korn's later material. I do love this one very, very much. Overall, See You on the Other Side by Korn, brilliantly adventurous album. While it is not all a consistent, very strong amount of material, there's loads for me to enjoy whenever I decide to come back and play the album all the way through. Despite some of the drawbacks from some of the production and mixing choices to a few of the songs and songwriting pieces, See You on the Other Side is such a passionate and enthusiastic album that was something unexpected and not what I would expect at the time when I was getting into Korn. But for me, being a big music fanatic, and to revisit this album, this was such a blast. So I really enjoyed loads of what's been going on whenever I played the album. I'm going to give See You on the Other Side by Korn a very enthusiastic high rating, which is an 8.5 out of 10. You may think differently, so I want to see what your thoughts are in the comments. What do you think of this album? Do you think it's one of your favourites? Is it one of those highly underrated Korn albums that you like? I will be very curious to know. Thank you guys for watching, and I will keep you guys posted for more videos in the near future.